I'm Rachel and I write the food blog rachelphipps.com, and it's basically a blog saying that anyone can learn to cook. So I do lots of really simple, basic, pared down recipes that anyone can do. So today I'm going to be cooking autumn vegetable fritters, which is a riff on my signature dish of vegetable fritters that I do. It's kind of from the traditional Jewish potato latke, and sort of over the years I've added whatever vegetables I've had sort of in my cupboard at the time. So I've written some of them for my blog, some of them for friends, depending on their personal tastes. And today I'm going to be working with some really nice new seasonal autumn vegetables to make them. So start off with the base. You always need a potato base for these. Usually I use normal potato, but I'm going to be using sweet potato today because it's really nice and seasonal. I grate it first, so you have the base for the fritter, and I always make sure I leave the skins on because it gives a really nice nutty flavour. So I've got about 2 bits of sweet potato down here. Should look sort of here, I've got a small sort of plate heap, like a pasta bowl full. And it really depends what other vegetables you can put in. You can adjust it depending on your flavours and what you personally like. So I'm using quite a bit of salt here, but I don't season with salt later on. So toss it a bit with salt and then I set it to one side, and I'm going to squeeze that through over the sink before I add it to the batter. But first let the salt draw out all the water from the potato. It's really good in season at the moment. I love putting leeks in this. I always put some sort of onion in my fritters, and I thought leek was just sort of nice for this season. For the about 2 sweet potatoes, a pasta bowl full of sort of grated potato, I'd probably use about 1 small to big leek, but if you really love onion you can put more. If you don't like it as much you can use less. It's just a good thing about this, it doesn't have to be exact, it can just be rough. Next, for flavour, but mostly for colour, I've got a red cabbage here. Well, it's called a red cabbage, but it's more purple. Purple's my favourite colour, which is kind of why I like using this. I'm going to take that out there. So, use my 1/4 head of cabbage I've got here. Right, so when I've gathered it sort of up like that, it's all cut, but then I try and chop it as much as possible when it's still in one piece, because then it makes it much easier to handle. Now I've got to make the batter to hold the fritters all together. When I'm just cooking for myself and I'm doing a 1 meal with less vegetables, I just use 1 egg, but for the amount we've used at the moment, probably about 2 eggs would make the right type of batter. So if you like your fritters more pancakey, you can make more batter. If you like more vegetable, you can use less just to hold it all together. Once you mix the vegetables in, you can always add another egg afterwards. That's what's really good about this. So just eggs straight into the bowl, hopefully not getting any shells. This I tend to do, even if I'm doing a 1-person portion or a 2-person portion, I use about a teaspoon of baking powder, just so they puff up and they rise. Go ahead to use a teaspoon of baking powder. And then flour-wise, I start with 3 sort of heaped tablespoons of flour, but it really sort of depends on how thick you like your batter. What you're aiming for is a batter which is slightly thick, and you think that it won't fit in, and it's a bit slightly too lumpy or gloopy. But then once you actually add the vegetables with water profile in, it kind of loosens it up a bit. So of course we added salt for vegetables, but we haven't used pepper yet, so I like to add a lot of black pepper here because it kind of gives it a bit more kick. Just get that mixed in. Now we need to add our vegetables for batter. So I've got the sweet potato here. I have squeezed it out over the sink. It's a bit of a messy job, and depending how much you've got, it does take a while, but it's worth it because otherwise your batter will thin out too much and the whole thing will fall apart and you'll just have a mess in the frying pan when you come to fry your fritters. Just because there's quite a lot of vegetable going into a small bit of batter, I tend to do these bits one at a time. So do it with a spoon, just make sure everything's well coated really. Once you start adding things together, you'll start seeing what wonderful colours sort of coming into the mixture. So about half the vegetables and then keep going. It's like you've got to make sure you pick it up off the bottom as well, because you tend to get batter hiding at the bottom of the bowl. So like the amount we've got here is sort of to serve about 4 people as a side dish for dinner, or as a light lunch or a light supper together. All we've got left to add now is the herbs sort of as extra flavouring. You can use whatever herbs you have to hand or what you've got to use up. Supermarkets sell massive bundles which you can never use the whole of. Here I've got coriander and flat leaf parsley. I just usually grab the end of a bunch, and same for coriander, which kind of adds a bit more interest to the flavour more than it being just a traditional herb. Usually when I'm cutting herbs I use a special herb chopper, but when I'm doing this, just take out some of the stalks. I like that you tend to get a rougher and you get more of a crunch. It's like the herbs are another vegetable rather than just being a herb, to be honest. So mix up so we've got a good mix of herbs, because I might not use all of them. Good handful. Make sure you mix it into the batter and herb mixture. So now we're ready to fry our fritters. You need to heat up sort of oil in a pan. Here I've used a sort of mild olive oil, especially for frying, so I know it's something lots of people have in their cupboards. I like to sort of do this with the spoon that I've mixed it with. So drop it carefully into the oil, and then use the back of the spoon, sort of shape it into a circular-ish shape. Just, it's a matter of keeping an eye on them. It should be a couple of minutes on each side, but you can tell when it slightly starts and it's ready to cook is you should get a sort of golden brown edge around the outside, so it's just a matter of waiting till it's up to that point. So I fried these off in the oil until they're golden on each side, and I dip them in pairs and I set them off on the side on tissue paper just to drain out some of the excess oil. Then you can either serve them straight on the sort of draining dish to a table of people, or if I'm cooking for just me or there's just one or two of us and it's sort of the main focus of the meal, it's a really sort of good veggie supper or lunch, I like to put them sort of off in a stack like that, so they look quite nice standing up there, and just extra, I like coriander because it's got more of a kick, but you can use the parsley, just one of the herbs that was in there, a little bit on top, that our fingers, and we're done with autumn vegetable fritters.